It was about an hour till midnight on New Year's Eve and Samir was at the club drinking, dancing, and looking for a woman to flirt with, all his typical ways to waste a night, but since it was a holiday today, he was even more dedicated to it. He had hoped to meet a woman and take her home before the ball drops in New York, so he began courting the prettiest women in the club and then working his way down until his line caught a fish. "Hey guy, I'm not interested. Leave me alone or I'll contact security," a woman wearing a yellow dress said as she slammed her cup down and walked away from Samir. "Wretch," Samir whispered under his breath as he walked over to the bar to get another drink. "That's the fourth one. Why am I having such bad luck tonight?" Samir said as he pulled out some cash and tossed it on the bar. The bartender, who was a woman slightly younger than Samir, shot him a glance but didn't say anything. She grabbed a glass and made the drink Samir always ordered. She placed it in front of him and then took his cash. Samir picked up the glass and lifted it up high. "THX babe," Samir said as he began drinking. He continued drinking until the whole thing was gone. He then slammed his cup on the bar. "Darn, that was good. I swear, I need to find myself a girl who not only knows what to pour for my favorite drink but also looks as good as you do when she does." The bartender turned her head towards him and looked disgusted. Samir raised his eyebrow when he noticed. "What's up, babe? You're actually into me?" he said as he smiled and leaned on the bar. The bartender scoffed. "Not a chance. You want to know why you're having bad luck? You're annoying, old, and clearly think women are objects, all of which the women here learn the moment you open that big mouth of yours." Samir looked shocked for a moment before he scoffed. "You have no idea what you're talking about, typical of a broad like you. I'll have you know I'm 28, so not old, and women love me. Sure, I'm a bit of a bad boy, but women love that type of personality," Samir said as he posed. The bartender looked at him silently for a moment before laughing. A frown appeared on Samir's face and he got more and more annoyed the more she laughed. Once she stopped laughing, she looked at Samir and smiled. "Sorry to break it to you, that might have worked in the past when you were younger and chasing after even younger women, but now it's just annoying and no woman wants to be treated like that," the bartender said as she picked up his glass and brought it to the sink. Samir rolled his eyes. "You have no idea what you're talking about. There must be something wrong with the women here. If I were a woman, I'd totally love to have a mean, bad boy boyfriend just like me." The bartender stopped suddenly and looked at him. "Is that so? Willing to make a bet then?" she asked as she walked back over to him. Samir smiled. "Sure, whatever it is, I'll win," he said as he leaned on the bar to get closer to her. The bartender did the same so her face was right in front of her. "All right, then here's the bet. I'll turn you into a woman. After that you have to go over and hang out with the meanest, most annoying bad boy here at the club." The bartender then shot a glance at a man who looked a lot like Samir, just with blonde hair and blue eyes instead of his red hair and black eyes. "If you can stand how poorly he treats you, all you have to do after that is kiss him at midnight and enjoy it like you think us women should." The bartender looked back at Samir. "If you manage to do that, I'll give you free drinks for a year, no limit." Samir raised an eyebrow, then looked over at the man again. He knew right away what that guy wanted, so if he were a woman, he could easily get him. Samir looked back over at the bartender, confused. "Turn me into a woman? Like, are you going to give me a makeover and put me in a dress?" Samir asked, confused. The bartender chuckled and put her finger over her lips. "Something like that, don't worry about it." Samir was still a bit confused, but he wasn't going to back down. He knew even cross-dressing, if he acted a certain way, he'd win. "All right, then I'm in," Samir said as he put his hand out towards the bartender to shake on it. "What, you don't even want to know what'll happen if you lose?" the bartender says, astonished. Samir shook his head. I'm not going to lose, so what does it matter? Samir said as he moved his hand around, trying to get her to shake on their bet. The bartender just smiled. Fine then, what I had in mind for you if you lose will remain a mystery, and you'll only find out should you fail. The bartender then grabbed Samir's hand and the two shook on it. Great, now how exactly did you plan to turn me into a woman? Samir asked, believing the bartender was full of it and he would win their bet right away. To his surprise, the bartender just smiled and pulled some strange futuristic remote out of her pocket. I plan to use this thing. Samir gulped and took a step back. What exactly is that? He asked as he watched her mess with it. Not quite sure, but it came from the future. Some guy in futuristic clothing dropped it one night when I was walking home from work, she said as she pressed the buttons on it. I'm not sure I believe that, but even if it's true. What does it do? Samir asked as he took another step back. Even if he said he didn't believe it, his mind did purely because it looked like something from the future. Well, as far as I can tell, it can alter reality. I used to make myself prettier, then I used it to own this club, and then I used it to make this the most popular place in the country. The bartender said as she stopped pressing buttons and pointed the device at Samir. Samir gulped again and his mind was screaming at him to run away. It can alter reality, and you used it to make yourself prettier and own a club? That seems like a waste if you ask me. The bartender shrugged. Yeah, perhaps, but I'm happy with this life, she said before a devilish smile appeared on her face. Now to use this to turn you into a woman. The bartender then hit one more button on the remote. Samir panicked and closed his eyes and covered his face with his hands, expecting to be blasted by a laser or something. Calm down, girl, it doesn't hurt, and it's instant. The bartender said, sounding like she was enjoying Samir's panic. Samir lowered her hands and opened her eyes. She looked around and noticed nothing seemed different. Nothing happened? Samir said as he looked at the bartender. The bartender raised an eyebrow and laughed at her. Are you an idiot? The changes were to you, you have to look at yourself to see what changed. Samir frowned. I'm not an idiot, she said as she looked down. She then gasped loudly. What the heck? Samir mumbled as she looked down at her chest, which was no longer flat. Samir pressed on what she was looking at and then gasped again. They're real, she yelled. The bartender started laughing again. Once she was done, she looked at the red-faced Samir and smiled. Of course, you're a woman now, which means you get your own pair. Samir's breathing started to get heavier as she panicked a bit. She looked back down at herself and realized that her chest wasn't the only thing to change. Everything about her was different, despite her body being as normal as ever. She was curvier than before, with longer hair and a much more feminine face. On top of that, her outfit had been changed. She was no longer wearing a red t-shirt with a black jacket and pants but instead a short, red dress with a black leather jacket over it. As for her shoes, they were a pair of boots before, but now they're high-heeled boots. Samir couldn't believe it, but a slight press of her legs together was more than enough proof. Her manhood was something she was quite proud of, but now it was gone. I'm really a woman, Samir said as she looked at the bartender. The bartender nodded as she pulled out Samir's ID. You sure are, a woman named Samira, who's also 22 now, which you're welcome for, she said as she tossed Samira's ID at her. Samira picked it up and looked at it, and just like her body, it had changed. So, this is reality now? Like, I've always been a woman? Samira asked as she looked at the bartender. The bartender nodded again. Yup, though we both know you were a man before, and we have our memories from that reality. So unless you want to stay a woman, you better get to work. the bartender said as she pointed at the guy Samira had to kiss at midnight. Samira looked at him, then back at the bartender and was about to ask what she meant by staying a woman, but she realized it on her own. The bartender was going to leave her as a woman if she lost the bet, which Samira couldn't let happen.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Also check out my Patreon and DeviantArt pages. There you can find all my public stories. You can also support my work by getting early access to all stories, exclusive content, and even commission me to make you a custom story. Anyways, thanks again for watching. I hope you have a great day.